Jackson Systems is your leading provider for HVAC controls, with products like our award-winning zoning solutions that completely eliminate the need for bypass dampers, our filter fetch service that pays you while homeowners get the filters they need, thermostats imprinted with your logo, complete home and business automation with connected thermostats, cameras, and intelligent Wi-Fi solutions from Nest, Ecobee, Honeywell, Google, and more. Visit us at jacksonsystems.com to see the products that continue to win industry acclaim among contractors across the country. Jackson Systems, controls done right.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Tradesman. We're going to continue talking about Manual D, which is duct design. We have gotten all the way to the friction rate worksheet. Last time we talked about total effective length. So we're going to move on. Before we move on, I want to remind you guys that Jackson Systems, who is our sponsor, you heard the ad at the beginning of the program, they're having a huge combustion parts sale. So if you go to jacksonsystems.com and take a look at the front page, you'll see them advertising that combustion parts sale. And if you have a lot of gas parts, boards, igniters, and stuff like that you stock up on in the wintertime, go ahead and click on that and get them to hook you up. They might be a great distributor for you to hook up with and could save you a ton of money potentially. So let's move on to talking about available static pressure. Okay, what is that? Well, available static pressure is the static pressure we're going to use for our friction rate formula after we take out all of the device pressure losses in the system. Now, what does that mean? Okay, device pressure loss is really fancy for stuff that gets in the way of airflow. Really basic. Here's a few examples of device pressure loss. I'm going to read right off the friction rate worksheet, which you can actually take a look at. It's the same one we looked at last time. I put a link in the last podcast. I'll try to put a link in this podcast too. It's from ahrinet.org. So let's read down the list. We're on step 2, device pressure losses. And you don't need to have the sheet in front of you. I'm just going to read down the list here. Direct expansion refrigerant coil. That's just like a refrigerant coil, just the same evaporator coil. You guys know what they are. Sometimes people word things in a way that's confusing, but it's really simple stuff, really, when you think about everyday usage. So on this particular sheet, the device pressure loss is 0.23 inches of water column. Just remember, we're starting with a certain static from our blower chart, and we're going to subtract all of these device pressure losses off of that to get our available static pressure. So let's go down the list again. The second one is electric heat resistance coil, heat strips. Heat strips block the airflow. They're right in front of the blower most of the time, so they're going to put a little bit of resistance in that airstream and cause a pressure loss. The next one is hot water coil. A lot of air handlers might have a hydronic coil attached to a boiler. Back in the day, we would do air handlers. They were trained air handlers at the time. These were ICF houses that had concrete and styrofoam walls. They were really good as far as keeping heat out in the summertime, keeping heat in the wintertime. All of these houses had trained air handlers and hydronic coils. We built little fittings to them. It actually ran down to a water heater, not a boiler. But those put an additional pressure loss in the system. Because a lot of times, if we have heat pumps, we're using the same coil. But now we have 2 separate coils in the system, so there's going to be a little bit more resistance. The next one is filter. Filter is a major deal because the range is very wide. In this example, it says 0.18 inches of water column. I've seen filters that go up into the 0.2 and 0.3. Some of those grocery store filters that are allergen filters, the ones Ralph Wolf talked about years ago in his videos, the Home Depot filter that comes 3 in a pack that costs like $20, puts a tremendous amount of stress on a blower, gives you less available static pressure, and thus you push less air. It causes issues in the duct system, can cause freezing of the coil if it's bad enough. Once they get dirty, it's even worse. The next one is a humidifier. In the South, we're like, what? Our humidifier is the Lord in the South. We don't need a humidifier. But up north, they have humidifiers. That puts a little bit of blockage in the duct system as well. Supply outlets, return grills, and balancing dampers. So even those small dampers that you turn by hand can actually reduce pressure a little bit in the duct system. So we're going to go through that whole list right there. direct expansion refrigerant coil, electric heat resistance coil, hot water coil, filter, humidifier, supplies, returns, and balancing dampers. We're going to add all those up and subtract it from the external static pressure from our blower chart. And that's going to give us our available static pressure. Now, in our example, we had a 0.5 static pressure for that blower speed tap that we chose. We gave us 750 CFM. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the previous podcast, download it. That's where we talked about selecting our blower tab and speed. So we're starting at 0.5, and we're going to subtract out all of our device pressure losses. Now, in my example, it was an air handler, so we're not going to have some of the pressure losses that this chart, the one that we're referring to, has. On a gas furnace, you have to add in that direct expansion refrigerant coil. This is a heat pump with air handler, so that's already taken into account. So we're going to be talking filter, supply outlet, return grill, and balancing dampers. We'll go ahead and use the same filter numbers that it has on the chart, 0.18. Then each one of those supply, return, and balancing dampers is 0.03. So if you have 0.03 for each one of those, it comes out to 0.09. We have our 0.18. That comes out as a total of 0.27. So if we subtract 0.27 from 0.5, we will get 0.23. So that is our available static pressure. So in our next step, in our next podcast, we're going to be taking that available static pressure, we're going to be plugging it into a formula, and we're going to get our friction rate. After that, we're going to get our ductilator out, and we're going to see what duct sizes we're going to use at that friction rate. Also, we're going to see what velocity we're running at that duct size, because even if the ductilator says that you can use that duct size, it doesn't mean we can actually use it. If the velocity is too high or too low, it doesn't work. If your velocity is too high, you're going to have all sorts of issues with turbulence and airflow, unbalanced airflow. If the velocity is too low, you're not going to have uniform airflow to the different branch runs. But we'll see how it all pans out. We'll run through the numbers. Just stick around for the next episode. But that right there is just a short look at how we get from external static pressure on our blower chart down to available static pressure for our friction rate formula. Thank you guys. I really appreciate you tuning into this series. And don't forget one thing. I am Zach Ciota, and I am the Tradesman. Guys that have listened to us at HVAC Shop Talk for a while have heard us talk about getting a free Zoom Lock toolkit with the purchase of a certain amount of Zoom Lock flame-free refrigerant fittings. Well, that's true. If you purchase 350 of the flame-free Zoom Lock fittings, you can get a free tool with that. But what you might not know is if you go to the Zoom Lock Roadshow and make that purchase, you can get it for 300 Zoom Lock flame-free refrigerant fittings. That's quite a deal, guys. Go to ZoomLockRoadshow.com and find out where that truck's at so you can flag it down and get your Zoom Lock tool today. Guys, this podcast is all about guys in the field. Now, this last series on Manual D is meant to help HVAC guys learn how to size duct properly, but we're going to do all sorts of podcasts here on The Tradesman. We're going to do instructional podcasts. We're going to do interviews. I have a couple interviews coming up this week. Hopefully I can book and get done so you guys can hear them. We're also going to do the stories like I originally started with the nice piano music in there, with some morals baked in there somewhere, just like a file and a cake going to a prison. I'm going to sneak those morals to you guys out there. If any of you want to appear on The Tradesman and have a story to tell, please email me, zacharYpsioda@gmail.com. Of course, you can hit me up on Facebook. I am Zach Ciota, Psioda. I'm easy to find because there's not a whole lot of Zach Ciotas. I stand corrected. There's two because of my old profile, which was all screwed up. So if you're going to message me on Facebook or be my buddy on Facebook, make sure you go to the picture of me in black and white with the do-rag on. I know, it's a do-rag, but I assure you I am a professional. If you want to be on the podcast, let me know what you want to talk about. Give me a great subject or a great story that you have acquired in your years of experience, maybe an adversity you've overcome. That's the kind of stuff I want to talk about. So guys, don't be shy. I know a lot of you guys, when I say you want to come on a podcast, guys are like, no way, Get over your fear. It's okay. Come on the podcast, tell your story, help other guys out in the field overcome either work struggles, home struggles, whatever you got. I'm ready to hear it. Be on the Tradesman. You guys are all tradesmen out there. Let's share in these stories. They'll be entertaining, educational, might even help guys through a tough spot. So if you want to come on the show, let me know. Otherwise, please share the show on Facebook. Share the show whatever way you can. Help us grow. Thank you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.